You have seen it 100 times. Your cat extends one paw toward you, slow and deliberate, and you feel it, that pull in your chest, the warmth. You tell yourself your cat is reaching for you because they love you. That is not what is happening. That conclusion feels right, it feels obvious, but the behavioral data collected over the last 2 decades on felid communication tells a different story. Not a colder one, a more complicated one. And the difference between what you assumed and what is actually occurring tells you something about your cat that the love story never could. A research team at the University of Lincoln published findings in 2011 after running attachment assessments on domestic cats using protocols adapted from human infant studies. They tested whether cats displayed the classic markers of secure attachment to their owners. What they found disrupted a decade of assumptions. Cats did not show proximity-seeking behavior under stress the way attached animals do. They used their owners as a reference point, not a source of comfort, a landmark. The paw reaching toward you is not a reach toward love, it is a reach toward information. That distinction matters more than most owners ever realize. The paw gesture has a name in behavioral science. Researchers call it a tactile solicitation. It is not unique to cats who feel affection, it is present across the full range of domestic cat relationships, from cats that sleep curled against their owners every night to cats that avoid human contact for most of the day. What changes is not the gesture, what changes is the context that triggers it. In 2019, researchers at Kyoto University studying feline social cognition documented that cats track human attentional states with precision that had not been previously measured. They know when you are looking at them, they know when you are not. A paw extension directed at a human who is distracted is not the same communication as one directed at a human making eye contact. The gesture is modulated based on your attentional state. Your cat is not reaching toward you because of a feeling, your cat is reaching toward you because they have calculated that this is the most efficient way to redirect your attention toward them. That is not cold, that is sophisticated. But here's what the research found at the third layer. The cats who performed tactile solicitations most frequently in these studies were not the most affectionate cats. They were the cats experiencing the highest level of environmental uncertainty. The paw was not expressing love, it was managing anxiety. There's a concept in veterinary behavioral science called proximity maintenance under ambiguity. It describes what social animals do when their environment contains information they cannot fully process. They move toward a known variable. They touch it, not because touching it feels good, but because contact produces data: pressure, temperature, movement, smell. The paw on your arm is your cat running a sensory diagnostic on the safest object in their environment. Dr. Kristen Vitale at Unity College in Maine has spent years mapping the social cognition of domestic cats. Her work, published in Current Biology in 2019, found that cats display individualized attachment styles, secure and insecure. The cats in the insecure attachment group were not less affectionate in obvious ways. They were more physically clingy, more likely to initiate touch, more likely to follow and reach and press, more likely to use the paw gesture. The paw that looks like love is more often the signature of a cat that is not fully at ease, and that difference between a cat expressing warmth and a cat managing uncertainty changes everything about how you should be reading this animal. Consider what the behavior looks like in cats that researchers classify as securely attached. These are cats studied by Vitale's team who, when placed in a mildly unfamiliar environment with their owner, explored freely. They returned periodically. They made brief contact, then moved on. The paw gesture in those cats was occasional and relaxed. It happened after engagement, not as a replacement for it. Now consider the insecurely attached cats in the same environment. They stayed close. They reached more. They initiated contact repeatedly and still did not settle. The reaching was not satisfying anything. It was a loop, an attempt at regulation that the cat could not complete because the problem was not physical proximity. The problem was internal uncertainty that touch alone could not resolve. That is what you are watching when your cat reaches toward you again and again without settling. Here is where this becomes something you need to hear about yourself. Cats do not respond to environments. They respond to the emotional signatures of the humans in those environments. A 2020 study from the University of Nottingham found that cats living with owners who reported higher stress levels showed elevated resting cortisol and increased touch-seeking behavior during owner interactions. The cats were not stressed by external threats. They were stressed by reading you, your cortisol, your posture, the quality of your presence when you sit in that chair. A cat who reaches toward you frequently, who places that paw on your arm or your face again and again, may not be telling you they adore you. They may be telling you that something in the room, in you, does not feel settled to them. They are touching the uncertain thing. They are trying to understand it. That is not manipulation. That is the most sophisticated coping behavior available to an animal whose survival has always depended on accurately reading the emotional state of the humans around them. If you want to support this channel and see more videos like this one, subscribing right now takes 3 seconds and it genuinely helps. Now back to what your cat is actually telling you. There is a myth that has circulated in cat behavior advice for years. It says that when a cat reaches toward you, you should always respond with affection. Reach back, pet them, reinforce the connection. This advice sounds kind. It is incomplete. Researchers at the University of Veterinary Medicine Vienna studied owner response patterns to cat-initiated touch in 2021. They found that cats whose owners responded to every tactile solicitation with immediate petting showed a specific behavioral profile over time. They initiated more touch. They also showed higher rates of redirected aggression and overstimulation responses. The reinforcement loop was not building security, it was building dependency. A cat reaching toward you does not always want contact. Sometimes the paw is a question. Your hand answering that question before the cat has finished asking it trains the cat that uncertainty produces touch, and touch becomes the strategy for managing uncertainty, not resolving it. The correct response in behavioral science is not to ignore the gesture, it is to pause. Let the cat complete the reach. Watch the body, watch the tail, watch the ears. The paw is not the message. The paw is the opening word of a sentence. Most owners stop reading there. The Seligman principle applies here in a way that almost no popular cat content ever discusses. In the 1960s, John Bowlby at the Tavistock Institute developed attachment theory by observing what infants do when they feel unsure. They reach toward the attachment figure, not because the attachment figure can solve the problem, because contact with a familiar presence down-regulates the nervous system enough to allow the organism to re-engage with the environment. It was never about love as a feeling, it was about love as a regulatory function. In a 2017 revision of attachment application to non-human animals, behavioral researchers noted that this regulatory function breaks down when the attachment figure is itself a source of unpredictability. A cat that reaches toward an owner who sometimes responds with warmth and sometimes responds with distraction or irritation is not being comforted by the reach. They are attempting to regulate through a variable that is itself dysregulating them. Your inconsistency is not cruelty, it is the ordinary inconsistency of a human life, but your cat is tracking it, all of it. There is one more layer most owners never reach. The paw, in many documented cases, is not directed at you at all. It is directed at the space between you. Ethologists studying felid social behavior have observed that tactile solicitation often functions as a boundary negotiation behavior. The cat is not asking for contact. The cat is testing whether the spatial boundary between them and you is stable, whether you will hold still, whether the environment around you will remain predictable. The paw lands, the data comes back, the cat decides what to do next. This is why some cats extend a paw toward you and withdraw it before any contact is made. They were not changing their mind, they were never asking for touch. They were measuring the field, checking whether the variable had changed since the last check. Researchers at the University of Sao Paulo studying domestic cat spatial behavior in 2018 found that cats in multi-cat households performed significantly more boundary-testing tactile behaviors toward human occupants than toward other cats. They found humans less predictable than other cats. The paw was a compensation for that unpredictability. You are the variable your cat cannot fully model. That is not a failure of the relationship, it is the condition of the relationship. You move through moods and schedules and conversations in ways that do not follow the logic of a cat's world, and your cat, who has built their entire safety architecture around reading you accurately, reaches toward you every single time the model needs updating. Every time something in your body or your behavior registers as new data, every time the certainty they had about you 5 minutes ago has shifted enough that they need to check again. What the paw gesture is at its most accurate is a window, not into how much your cat loves you, into how your cat is interpreting the quality of safety in your home, in your presence, in the texture of your daily emotional state. A cat that reaches toward you 10 times in an hour is not 10 times more in love with you than a cat that reaches once. They are 10 times less certain that everything is okay. The cats who are at ease do not need the paw. They read the room from across it, they settle, they observe, they stay. The ones who reach are the ones still learning whether the room is safe. And now, for the first time, you know how to answer them, not with your hand, with your consistency.